Pleasant good morning to you. I know it's very early in the morning where I am. It's 2 a.m. and this is when the stream begins. It's a spontaneous stream, so don't feel too how about me streaming now. I want to talk a little bit about some of the things in CS as a director and the false narratives around the Snyderverse and around the principal character of Superman in the Snyderverse. And I'm going to also talk to you guys about false narratives concerning fans and supposed divided fandom. And we're also going to talk about, um, finally, some false narratives concerning the future of DC and what the executives, what the industry would like to happen, and what we as fans would like to happen. So I want to make sure and get that clear. This isn't about Snyder fans and the Snyder Bros, because clearly these industrial shills, which represent the industry, are trying to label DC fans as Snyder Bros. And from being inside of DC communities and seeing the overwhelming response by people in the DC communities, I'm beginning to realize that these are all false narratives. And there's just so many facts to back that up, but we'll try and get into that in a minute. So let's start off with the Snyder Bros, particularly. Anybody who likes Zack Snyder's movies, apparently, are labeled Snyder Bros. Even DC fans who like other stuff have been put into that. The DC fans who like the CW, who liked Superman and Lewis, who liked the Batman, who even liked Black Adam, they're labeled Snyder Bros because they liked the Snyderverse and what it was offering. Even some of the DC fans who liked James Gunn's Superman 2025 and complimented it, but then complimented the Snyderverse and complimented Man of Steel, or preferred Man of Steel over Superman 2025, but like both movies, they're also cast as Snyder Bros, which is really weird. Okay, it's really weird. You just say anything against what is happening right now in DC, or you even put something previously above it. You don't even have to not like it. Put anything above it, and you see these studio shills coming at you. Now, some of these studio shills that we see are not actually people, they're bots. But then you also have the studio shills out here who are paid by Warner Brothers Discovery, or are working in the industry where they'd like to laze with Warner Brothers Discovery and get a job with them. And you see them shilling out here like crazy. You can call them fans if you want, but they're not really. They are, whether what their personal preferences are and so on, they're not letting that be known. They are doing a job. They're doing an industry job. And you need to be able to separate what this industry is, that is Hollywood industry, from the general people and the general audience. The Hollywood industry is not that big, okay? They're just a group of companies out there that do film and do entertainment. And so, because the community is so small, it's hard for people to get work when they really want to get work without connections. As such, mostly people in the industry. Now, there are people in the industry who tell you the truth and they go against the norms in the industry. All right. But if you listen to the people in the industry, they're all united on certain topics. And the reason that is so is because nobody wants to go against the grain. Nobody wants to lose work. Nobody wants to lose their job. Okay. So that's what's going on with respect to people who you find are united in the way how they criticize a particular set of people. And their arguments are ridiculous, but you have to understand these people are not connected to the general world and how general fans are. They're totally distant from that. They're in Hollywood, and Hollywood, they're familiar with the Hollywood environment, and they want to remember they want to live, prosper, and continue their jobs in Hollywood. So these people, they give you the status quo. So when I say that this is a shill for Warner Brothers Pictures, I mean it. I mean that these are people who work in the industry, and this is how they think, and this is how they do things. Okay? All right. So C.S. the director is not one of those. He is a Snyder fan, period. He is undisputably a Snyder fan. That's not an if, but, or maybe. He's a real Snyder fan. But nonetheless, he is giving IMDb's ranking of the all-time highest grossing DC films ever made. This is not adjusted for inflation. And if you look at this list, it's very interesting. So I'm going to kind of blow it up if I can. Aquaman 2018 is at the top of the list with a grossing of $1.15 billion. The next in the list, next highest thing in the list, is The Dark Knight Rises, which was put out in 2012, and it made $1.14 billion. Okay, so Aquaman just edged out The Dark Knight Rises. Next in the lineup is Joker in 2019 with $1.78 billion. Oh, sorry, $1.07 billion. My bad. The Dark Knight then comes in at $1.02 billion. And then we have Batman v Superman with $874 million. We have Wonder Woman with $824 million. We have the Batman with $772 million. We have Suicide Squad with $749 million. Man of Steel with $670 million. And Justice League 2017, which was a flop, with $661 million. And this is as of August 2025, which is this month. Okay, so those are the highest grossing DC films ever made. Of course, you're going to say, well, where is Superman in all of this? And I believe these are the top 10. Yes, they're the top 10 highest grossing DC films. Well, Superman's not on this list because, well, the Superman, it's just not on the list. Okay. Superman was a Justice League film. It was not a Superman solo film. It was an ensemble film, right? And like Justice League 2017, it was a campy comedy filled, not taking itself too seriously film. It performed worse than Joss Whedon's Justice League. So Joss Whedon's Justice League made $661 million. It was still a flop because of its budget. Warner Bros. Decides to hide the budget for Superman. We know the budget for Superman is around $300 million, just like Justice League. We know that. But they've hidden the budget. They've also lied about the marketing costs. And that's all well and good. The thing I have to say about that, though, is that it is performing worse than Justice League 2017. And basically, Superman is wrapped. If it makes 10 million more than the 600 million, I think it crossed 600 million over this weekend. If it has made 10 million more than the 600 million it was supposed to make, that's a stretch, right? The point I'm making is you give us an ensemble film, and the ensemble film still doesn't match up to other ensemble films. That's not a Superman solo film. It should not be compared with Man of Steel because Man of Steel is a Superman solo film. There is, even though they say it starts a universe, it was focused on Superman. It was focused on how he came to be. It's a standalone film. You can leave that film as it is, and it performs on its own. This Superman film is an ensemble film, and for the most part, it is, would you call it a standalone? In a kind of way, it does. Disney kind of wraps it. But it kind of tells you there's Supergirl and so on. So there's other films that can come out of this film. It is one of the worst Superman films of all time, I would say. And though it accumulated more money than I expected it to, I expected it to flop on release, but it actually made money. It didn't make profit, but it made money. It grossed something, like a Justice League film would. It's not in this all-time grossing DC films ever made. Fact. Almost all of these DC films that you see here in this top 10 DC film list have a serious tone. The Dark Knight Rises, Joker, The Dark Knight, Batman v Superman, The Batman. Suicide Squad had a jokier tone. And Man of Steel. 8 out of the 10 top movies had a serious tone. 8. Think about that. Oh, and another very huge point. 4 of the 10 movies, actually it's half, 5 of the 10 movies, either related to the Snyderverse or come from the Snyderverse. Half of them. Okay. In the comment section, this gentleman says, crazy how Superman 2025 isn't on that list, even with today's higher ticket prices. This is not adjusted for inflation. CS the director says, is it good that James Gunn DCU is not connected to Zack Snyder's and David Ayer's DCEU? Yes. Alternative timelines. 95% of the people who voted said yes. Here's a typical comment. It's better for both fandoms for James Gunn vision to be totally separate from the Snyderverse. Shout out to CS the director. CS the director says, do you want me to make more DCEU related content? 75% of the people on his channel said yes. Yes, especially with Zack Snyder and the DCU. Yes, indeed. Because the DCU is the best DC cinematic universe. CS the director says, the downgrade for Superman is real. Time to restore the Snyderverse. Here you see above Man of Steel, Fiora, and the big giant Kryptonian. They're pinning down Superman. He's about to burn through their eyes. And here we see the engineer, I guess, trying to cover Superman's face. I'm not sure what she's trying to do here. Of course, they borrowed from Man of Steel, where they, pushing Superman into the ground and stuff like that. Just not epic at all. Robbed of an idea again. No original ideas by James Gunn. But of course, the CGI is just terrible here. Just horrible. It is what it is. All right. So, and Man of Steel is a 13-year-old film. So the CGI in Man of Steel is so crazy good. It's not funny. But anyway, let's get to the point. The falsehoods and the lies. I gave you facts. All right. I laid out some facts for you. And we're going to go through some of the lies that are here. I am really going to enjoy it because it's interesting to see DC fans debunk the lies that are being circulated by the studio. And we know it's the studio doing this. But here's Henry Cavill's Superman. I'm just showing you him in various iterations. And quick quick remembrance for many of you out there that forgot who Henry Cavill was and why he was in such demand and why fans love Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill fans, first of all, are not limited to Superman. Henry Cavill has fans that liked him for The Witcher, where he played a totally different role to Superman. Okay? So that's a very important point for us to note, right? And it's something that Warner Brothers doesn't want you to know. That a lot of people say, "Oh, Henry Cavill, he wasn't a good actor." This is the narrative that the studio gives. He wasn't a good actor, and the character that he played, it wasn't that great. And why would we want Cavill? Cavill was too bland. He couldn't act, right? But yet, Cavill's out of The Witcher, and nobody's watching The Witcher. Cavill's out of Superman, and Superman's not getting much play. And when we talk about Henry Cavill's Superman, let's make that abundantly clear. We're not talking about the Whedon-directed Superman or any other directed Superman outside of Zack Snyder that he was directed as. We're not talking about that, just in case you get confused. But this is a very important point. People love Henry Cavill, and there are Henry Cavill fans, period. There are people who just love Henry Cavill, period. And then you have people who love Henry Cavill in The Witcher. We have Witcher fans that love Henry Cavill in The Witcher. And then we have the Superman fans who love Henry Cavill as Superman. And now we have Marvel fans that like Henry Cavill as Wolverine. We have the Calvary, right? They introduced Henry Cavill. So Henry Cavill, if he's not a good actor, like you guys say, or he plays a certain typecast, okay. But he's damn good at doing that, right? Because they loved him in The Witcher, they loved him as Wolverine, and they loved him as Superman. So somehow, some way, whatever Henry Cavill's doing, it fits the different major molds of comic book characters. Okay? And we all know Henry Cavill loves to be true to the source material. He takes pride in that. That's why he even left The Witcher to start with. And Henry Cavill's working on some other projects. So anybody's trying to bash Henry Cavill, we already realize, and we know it's the studio doing that, through their representatives. We know for a fact that's not true. That's a false narrative. Here's Henry Cavill. Here's Superman. Henry Cavill is Superman. Do I need to make myself more clear? I mean, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. He's not even trying. He's just chilling. And he looks like Superman. Okay? Not only does he look like Superman, he behaves like Superman, right? Okay. So Henry Cavill, no matter what people say, he's really good at capturing iconic characters. We saw him as Wolverine, and he looked like Wolverine. He behaved like Wolverine, right? We saw him as in The Witcher, and he looked like the major character in The Witcher. He behaved like the major character in The Witcher. And we saw him as Superman, and he looks like Superman, and he behaves like Superman. Why? Henry Cavill's an actor that's very thorough. He does his homework, right? He doesn't even have to deliver a whole bunch of lines. Henry Cavill, you can give him the minimalist of those lines. He'll squeeze those lines out, and he'll give you an authentic depiction of a character and make it feel real. Just that brief moment he had inside of Deadpool and Wolverine, and just a few words he said, it's just typical Wolverine. And you were like, this guy could play Wolverine. This guy could play Superman. This guy could play The Witcher. What else can he play? And of course, we know Henry Cavill was a villain, a CIA villain in Mission Impossible. And he was great in that too, right? He was great in that too. So if you're going to say that Henry Cavill's a boring actor and he didn't play Superman good and blah, 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 just remember, when you hear people saying that garbage, it's a studio trying to destroy the actor. That's what's behind that. It's not a fan giving his opinion. No, that fan, do some homework on that fan. If you can't find that fan's, you look at the fan's account and you find that that fan is either a professional in the industry, he's a professional animator or whatever. Got to question that fan. And then secondly, if that fan doesn't even have much followers, it doesn't matter how long that fan has been on Twitter, right? It shows me that's an alternative account or it's a bot account. And then you have to ask yourself, because Casey Bloys even admitted that he hired people, a team of people, to tear down critics who were speaking badly about a certain film. So he's already admitted that. So you know Casey Bloys could be behind this and James Gunn could be behind this. You know that from the get-go. Okay? So you have to understand that when you hear a certain kind of trend of thought, that's the studio's opinion. And when you see people who are authentic, and I've been pointing it out on Twitter particularly, all these bots and trolls and hirelings of the studio, you do find the one or two people who are contrarians, but most of the time, these bots, these trolls, and these shills haven't read a comic book, haven't picked up a comic book. The fact that I had to even tonight, I was educating people on Dan Jurgens' Death of Superman run, because I'm going to actually show you. I'll show you. Because like I said before, there are false narratives out here, and we need to set the record straight on this. Okay, so does that look like Superman to you? And he's just casually, you know, he's standing next to a statue of Superman, but nonetheless, he's just casually doing that. The dude is Superman, period. Okay, all right. So I could go on and on and on, but I want to select specific things now to talk to you guys about. By the way, shout out to Pieces27, aka Gandalf's Apprentice, and also Gun Gooner Cringe, which is a parody account mocking gun fans. Okay. All right, I just want to bring this up because I probably put Free Palestine somewhere inside my thing, and even if I didn't, I'm going to bring this up. Al Jazeera held a televised memorial and moment of silence to pay tribute to 6 of the journalists in Gaza who were targeted and assassinated by Israel. Okay? You know, I just had to bring that up. And one more thing with Free Palestine. Tony Montana said, protected class, still afraid and wants reparations. David is responding to a Palestinian supporter, and he says, at Katos, are you a fucking Muslim pig? Go fuck yourself. And if you don't know, get the fuck out. So, IYKYK said, are you a fucking Jew pig? Go fuck yourself. If you don't know, get the fuck out. How does that taste? And literally X limited his posting for that. So both guys said basically the same thing, but X punishes the guy who calls the Zionist guy who's calling Muslims a fucking Muslim pig. It literally limits IYKYK and literally does nothing to David Bergs, which is sickening. And I wanted to point it out because this is the same way Warner Brothers and all these corporations behave. They say Snyder Bros. They label you toxic fans. They label you delusional. Meanwhile, their shills get to run wild, say all kinds of evil things about Zack Snyder's daughter, etc., etc., etc. I wanted to show you. And they're quick to call you a Snyder bro, even if you're not a Snyder bro, even if you're not a Snyder cultist. They call them Snyder cultists as well. They call them Snyder cultists. They call them Snyder bros. They're quick to call you that, so you'd be afraid to associate yourself. Or you have to give a disclaimer first. I'm not a Snyder bro. I'm not a Snyder cultist. You have to give a disclaimer. The same way you say, I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm not this. You're not supposed to have to say that. You're a human being. You have a conscience. Just the same thing with racism, with the black people. Oh, you're an angry black man. They label everybody angry black man, right, in America, so that you are on the defensive. It's bullshit, and you must not take it anymore. You must stand up for yourself, and fuck them. I'm just saying. Shout out to Mark Ruffalo. I'm going to play Mark Ruffalo, what he has to say here. Shout out to him. I'm glad that he's horribly disturbed by this. He happens to be of Jewish parentage and so on, and he just has a guy of conscience. I like him for that. And shout out to Mark Ruffalo in a big way for standing up for the humanity, not even Palestinian rights, humanity. Here we go.
This is not a natural disaster. It's not a drought. This is a man-made disaster. It's a man-made criminal act to kill civilian populations. And it's being perpetrated by Israel and the IDF. They have all the food in the world on one side of the border. And on the other side, they have nothing. Don't let Gaza starve. Speak up. Don't stop until there's a just and lasting peace. Yes, we must stop this. We must bring the hostages home. And we must stop the killing of the children. More than 80% of the people who have died in this war are civilians. It's insane. Do something. President Trump, do something. You say you care about starving people. You say you want to stop war. Do something. Germany, do something. Europe, do something. UK, do something. We're going to sit here and watch this happen? It's insane. It's heartbreaking. Do something.
Good. The great Michael D., Ireland's humanist president, hit the nail on the head. A UN peacekeeping force is the only way Israel's genocide of Palestinians can end. Duh. I've been saying that for a long time. 9 Dutch ministers resign in support of Gaza. The Polish have sent a message to Israel on a match between 2 Polish teams, Gobrek and whatever. Our ancestors died to save Jews, and we're starting to regret it. That's what Poland said.
All the hospitals are Hamas, all the journalists are Hamas, everything's Hamas.
I just got to get through this, and then I'm going to go back to the other stuff, but I have to say it. The latest missile we struck at the heart of Tel Aviv has paralyzed Israel's national security and what lies within. Wait for what next is coming. Shout out to Yemen on bombing Israel once again. I guess you'll have to do that more often, my friends. Piers Morgan breaks it down really nicely as he's talking to the Israeli minister here.
You can say all this. All the hospitals are Hamas, all the journalists are Hamas, everything's Hamas. Every death that happens is Hamas's fault. Every child that's starved is Hamas's fault. Everyone who is shot in the queues for food that we've seen in the last few weeks, which is shocking to observe, every one of those is Hamas's fault. Everything is Hamas's fault. The IDF does nothing wrong. The Israeli government does nothing wrong. And there's a reason you can say all this. There's a reason you can sit back and say all this. You don't let journalists in to do their jobs, to verify what you're saying. That's wrong. So you can say what the hell you like, and we all just have to accept it. You see the problem? All the
Good. Okay, now we're gonna get to some stuff. We're gonna get to some stuff. So, Mr. Peter Parker, Peter Tobey, a guy who is obviously a Marvel fan, but also he claims to be a DC fan. He says, which take on Superman works best? The dark, gritty version, which he's saying is this version here. So he says that's a dark, gritty version, or the lighthearted and hopeful one. So he classes this as lighthearted and hopeful. And implied in this statement is that Zack Snyder's Superman is dark and gritty, and that James Gunn's Superman is lighthearted and hopeful. And I want to show you what DC fans think about this in the comment section below, because I think it's very revealing. Okay, so Funzo S says, the darker one comes off better. I personally love Man of Steel version more. It's more real adult version of Superman, how we rarely react to him if we were in our society and reality. Looks better and portray the character better. Snyder films aren't necessarily dark and gritty. They're just more serious, said Eric, and he's correct. I think only few people support this. I once did too, but I'm afraid it's not true. That's what Peter Parker says. By the way, I would say that Peter Parker is an industry shill, and he's literally reflecting what Warner Brothers thinks. So it's very important to see through the lens of what these people in Hollywood, how they feel. And this Peter Parker guy, by the way, let's see who he is. He's a movie enthusiast, cartoon lover, DC and Marvel fan, movie critic. As I said before, he is in the industry. Okay? So this is very important. You have to understand what these guys are, who they are, why they're raising this. It's very important to get that down packed. Okay, now that you're clear on that, let's keep it moving. King T'Challa, who's a Snyder fan, I am very sure about that, says, what makes his Superman gritty then? Snyder's Superman exists in a much bleaker world. The colors are subdued, the themes are weighty, and the consequences feel real. Rather than being embraced with joy, he's met with doubt, fear, and even hostility. And why is that gritty? That's not gritty. Gritty means something else. Right, more real. So that's not gritty. And that's the problem with these guys. When these guys speak, these industry guys, they can only see things through the lens of the industry. They don't take a fresh breath to come out of the industry because they're in a fantasy world. They don't even realize it. Hollywood's not real. Hollywood's a fake world. You're trying to get yourself up in and get yourself in a position to do something. So they're not in reality. Reality is not gritty. Right now, when I'm talking to you, our little conversation that we're having, is that gritty to you? How's that gritty to you? Just because people are not smiling and having sunbeams out of their asses and they're not just implicitly trusting in a Superman doesn't mean the world is gritty. Gritty. Let's go and look at gritty as a definition, shall we? There you go. Okay. The adjective means contained or covering with grit. Okay. Showing courage and a typical gritty performance by the British player. Courageous, brave. No, gritty means something else. Let's just go further. Come on now. Y'all got to do it better than that. Someone who's gritty is brave and determined. Grit is a tiny particle of sand or stone, and gritty means covered in grit. A second meaning of gritty is showing bravery and spirit. When you stick with something, no matter how scary or difficult it is, that is gritty. Gritty means rough. Here we are, having a rough, sandy texture. Imagine how something feels between your fingers to apply gritty in textural descriptions, right? It's okay, gritty can mean courageous, yes, but that's not what I know gritty to be. Gritty is rough. So it's like a rough and rugged, movie. Gritty, cursing and swearing, and you're gritty. You're down deep in the grit, right? In the muck, it's muddy. It's gritty. It's dark and gritty. It's dark and rough. Tough looking. That's gritty. Okay, that's what I know gritty to be. So that's gritty to me. Okay, rough and rugged and tough. That's gritty. So Batman's considered gritty. Okay, Batman's considered gritty because he's tough, he's rough, he's rugged. That's gritty. Okay? And dark, there's nothing dark about Superman. Any version of him I've seen, well, I mean, James Gunn's Superman is kind of not really, right? So, okay. So he's talking about the bleaker world and stuff. It's not a bleaker world, my friend. It's our world we live in. It's not. Do you consider the world you live in bleak? I mean, come on now. It's the real world, i.e., more serious. It's just a serious take on Superman. It's not gritty and it's definitely not dark. Superman's not dark. It's never been dark, right? He lost hope for a minute in BVS, but even then, he wasn't dark. Dark. Okay, so Batman's dark, right? Well, he's called the Dark Knight, so there you go. But Batman's dark not because he literally works in the dark. It's because he doesn't use conventional methods. He'll beat a guy to a pulp just to get information from him. He'll scare people. He uses fear to scare people to get them to stop crime and stuff. So that's why we say he's dark. He's creepy. He's the creature of the night, that kind of thing. So that's what makes him dark and gritty. He's a hero. It's really an anti-hero, but he's a hero in the sense that in a world that's so corrupt, which is Gotham, he has to go to extra judicial methods to get the criminals. He has to be pretty bad. He has to be bad himself to be able to get the bad guys. You get what I'm saying? So that they would fear him. So his methods of interrogation, they are brutal. That's what makes Batman dark. Okay? All right. Now, Superman is not that. He's never been that. That's why Superman's not dark. Okay? And he's not gritty. He's not gritty. Even when they talk about being courageous, like in the face of everything, it's still not gritty. All right? Superman's not rough. He's not rugged. Actually, Man of Steel shows Superman to be somewhat delicate with the people he loves. He's very sensitive, So, no, I don't believe that Superman is dark and gritty, and there's no dark and gritty version. And the lighthearted and hopeful one, well, from what I know of James Gunn's Superman, he wasn't lighthearted at all. He was yelling at people all the time. And was he hopeful? I mean, I don't know. I guess in some ways he was hopeful. Just because you have vibrant colors doesn't make the movie lighthearted. You know what I mean? If he's lighthearted, then it means he's a kind of happy-go-lucky kind of guy, and he's not that in the movie, without any cares or worries on his heart. He's lighthearted, and I don't get that from that Superman. I think he's contemplative. He's trying to figure out where he fits, if he's a good guy or a bad guy, and his adopted father sort of helps him on that way. But to say he's lighthearted, I didn't see that with the Superman. Okay, so that's why I said false narratives. So Mr. Peter Parker works in the industry. He's a film critic. And he's a film critic. And I said, we try to go by facts, okay? He's a film critic who, very interestingly enough, mischaracterizes Zack Snyder's Superman. If you say that Zack Snyder's Superman, particularly Man of Steel, BVS, and Zack Snyder's Justice League, is a more serious take on Superman, now I can take you seriously, versus a more campy, funny version of Superman in what James Gunn was giving. I wouldn't even say funny, because Superman himself, though the movie, has a lot of, it's not realistically grounded at all. I wouldn't say it's necessarily funny. Now, Superman is at the butt of some jokes, like when Crypto beat him up, when, well, he got beat up so bad in this film, it's not funny. He got beat up more than in BVS. And Superman took some blows in BVS, right? At least by Batman. And then he took, mental blows by people who turned against him. But here, this Superman's getting beat up, period. He's getting broken bones, all kinds of stuff like that. All right, so here are the replies. So Fonzo said darker comes better. And then Eric says Superman films aren't necessarily dark and gritty. They're just more serious, which Eric is correct. Bro Hamster says Superman 2025 is for children and gays. Man of Steel was for men. Now, the name Bro Hamster tells me I shouldn't take this guy seriously. He has the name Bro Hamster. So this is obviously an alias. I would like to see what his background looks like, though. Unmasking truths with epic trolls. Snyderverse and MCU stand. Follow for bold takes and real talk. Truth revealer. Egypt is I guess he lives in Egypt. He's definitely not an industry guy. And he's funny as hell. He's probably a troll. Because I'm thinking, why would you call yourself Bro Hamster? He's a troll. I'm very sure the guy that uses gays as an insult will have an insightful opinion. Him. He's really trolling. I'm very sorry. Pronouns offend you. No. It says Peter Parker. Is Superman 1978 for children and gays since it has the same tone as Superman 2025? Superman 2025 is for gays. Man of Steel was for men. We remember the oil rig scene. Okay. More gay men liked Man of Steel, he says. Big Boy Tooley. I guess you're gay. I don't know. Prometheus. Granted, Man of Steel has its own appeal. Reducing the new one to gays and children is a weird thing to say altogether. I don't even think children. I can't even say children like it because, I don't think it was good for children either. Bro, X-Mex says, so we are disliking the heroes because they're good now. Okay. So also, Man of Steel was fucking buns for one of the worst movies I watched in a while. And let's see where Boom X comes from. Yeah, just as I thought. He's a fake account. He only has 4 followers. So you get what I'm saying? Bravehearted Lion says, what I don't get is the negative feedback for Man of Steel, especially when since conception of Superman, the character and universe has evolved over time. I don't think people really knew the history from day one, nor do they want to accept evolution. Man of Steel was great and refreshing in my opinion. Man of Steel is for the trash can. This is Sean Syriac. I bet you, yes. DCU Talk, and there's James Gunn right there. 166 followers. Enough time has passed. Okay, so this account is open up to basically serve James Gunn. If you look at the account, almost non-stop, that's what it's doing. And Marvel. So this guy's also a Marvel fan. Okay. This is an actual fan, I do believe. This is a real person. Okay, so that's actually a fan. He just buys into what the studio is offering. Man of Steel's with the trash can. Get right says most accurate, correct from a real man. Grievous fan says this nigga is so retarded. Joined November 2023. Interesting. Wednesday Adams for September 23rd, 2025. I'm also on a sexual male. Okay, he's a troll. This guy's trying to show monkey. So we have a couple of troll accounts also joined in July of 2023. So we can you see a pattern here, right? These are troll accounts. These are not real accounts. Interesting. There you go. Uh-huh. Joined March 2024. So I'm getting a vibe that these guys joined very recently on Twitter. Fanverse official studio. So this is an actual. Yep, there you go. Yep. Voice actor, writer, animator, Twitch affiliate. There you go. Trying to get into the industry. Mm-hmm. I'd say man is grace for people whose minds are stuck in puberty. Okay. That's crazy hearing it from you. Look again. Another troll account. These are not real accounts. Interesting. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is an executive here. This is an executive here. This is an executive here. And this is an executive. This is probably Warner Brothers executives. And they're replying to troll accounts. The challenge says, bro's projecting the fact that he loves seeing Henry Cavill shirtless. The challenge. This is obviously another troll account. And look, April 2023. Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, here is a lot of gun troll accounts responding. Thomas Rodriguez had to update my bio. I'm not a conservative or Trumper. I just enjoy my FYP. He's from Florida. He joined in 2016. This is him, I guess. Good Lord. What world is being over 20 and having sex with minors? Is it okay? Fuck Trump fans. At least he's against that. Pedophilia. Thomas Rodriguez says, what you Snyder folks don't get, and I'm getting pissed. These robots and Eradicator were instrumental in bringing him back to life after issue number 75. In the movie, a Kryptonian ship, Cyborg, and Flash did the trick. All he needed was the sun. Superman was a good movie and worth a rewatch on IMAX for me. So he's just a gun fan. That's it. He does know his comics, though. So he is an actual fan. But there's a lot of people working in the industry here, and they are responding. And there's a lot of them responding to this small tweet right here by this guy. It's for gays, and this is a troll. This guy's a troll, I'm telling you right now. Just funny as hell. Minister is for edgelord incel losers like you. So this is, again, sentiments. This is how the studio feels about. This is very interesting. Idiot liner, just dweeb, weeb, gamer, mobile, PSN run. Here to make friends and then some. Porn and pop culture. Jensung, Asia, DSO. Died October 2016. And wow. This dude's literally doing gay porn. Wow. Well, that explains that, bruh. Yo. That's why he likes gun. Man, all of these guys, they seem to be sexually deviant. No wonder he likes Peacemaker and that stuff. What a weirdo. He said, Man of Steel is for the edgelord incel losers like you. Well, you're surely gay. Bro, Hamster had a point. Oh, my goodness. SJ4 says, makes you sound like a closet there. A bit closeted there, gay mate. SJ4, you better talk about yourself. Oh, wow. Look at this. Look at this. August 2020. 9 followers, 18 following. This is not a real account. Wow. So we got fake accounts. We got perverts, gay perverts responding. Hackman45 says, men, you mean rape, right? Right? Wow. If you come here to see my replicas, then okay, welcome. Also, I have multi-standards, so don't be shocked if my replies is not consistent. I'm also following porn. Look at that again. So you see, these guys follow porn a lot. And when did he join? July 2025. My goodness gracious. Yo. Yo. These are the characters that we're looking at, people. Yo. Hackman 45. Batman says, this is supposedly Batman. Chadwick something. Let me see what's going on here. Yo. Dude into the movie industry and making movies. You don't got a lot. A post. It's a guy in the industry. I wouldn't be surprised. All those guys we just talked to, even the gay guy, they're industry people. That is fucked up. So all these people responding, including Thomas Rodriguez, they're probably all working for these studios. And this literally is how they feel about stuff. Look at this, Profeta. Look at this, November 2024. That's last year. He got 25 followers. Yeah, man. Professor, who says even Man of Steel Superman will disagree with you. He don't like DIE. He's a racist. My God, this is messed up. Thomas Rodriguez says a gay guy could probably whip your ass. You blue check trolls crack me up. He's a real person, but man, I don't even want to go into this. I don't even want to go into any more of these guys' profiles. It is messed up, y'all. It is messed up how these industry people, and you know these are industry people responding. And they respond in bulk or true butts. So this guy, he's a troll. He triggered everybody. And there they are responding to him. But they obviously can't maintain it because when you go to the community post itself, there's an overwhelming amount of people, literal fans, who feel exactly the same way as Bro Hamster. Look at this. Ninth Octopus. I am annoyed and wary of the darker costumes. Batman, Nightwing, Wildcat, etc. should be dark costumes for stealth. I prefer that Superman, Green Lantern, and Dr. Fate, etc. be bright and bold. Dude, this was for Zack Snyder's Justice League. Superman Rises from the Dead. If you haven't read Death of Superman comic, don't make it obvious to all of us. The one on the right doesn't even fit the suit. It's a joke. Dude says, nag, the suit is fire, my bro. He meant, nah. Oh, man. Y'all people in the industry, y'all are some weirdos, man. You think that suit look good? Oh, my God. DC Life says, something in between for me. I love Cornset's earnestness, while I love Cavill's quiet confidence and power levels. The tone of the movie could also be in between for me. Not entirely dark, but also not immediate jokes in the middle of big emotional moments. Okay, I kind of agree with this. I don't. DC Life, by the way, he claims to be a Snyder fan. I hope to inspire you to live your life fully as I live out mine. Official website is DC Life. He's into entertainment and recreation. He also has a YouTube channel. And he's supposedly part of the Snyder fandom. And I've watched his videos a bit. But the thing about him is he gets facts wrong. And for instance, he's saying that, it should be in between Cornset and Henry Cavill's renditions. But you have to remember something, and this is where I think he's very wrong. Zack Snyder is building up to the Superman that you guys know, right? So Superman is developing through different stages. In other words, what Zack Snyder is doing with Superman is he is letting Superman earn his stripes. So Superman has to go through all these different things in his hero's journey, which is 5 different arcs, 5 different films. He's going through these different developmental phases in his journey until he becomes the Superman that you guys know. He becomes the Superman that you respect. So obviously, it's not something in between because that you want. It's the Superman you want, but you're not going to get him with Zack Snyder until he reaches his final destination. And he'll say, "That's the Superman I know. That's the Superman I want." But Zack Snyder has been developing Superman, so he goes through all these different things so that you will see the Superman that you know. It's not Superman just appeared like that and became that overnight. That no, and that's what I love about Zack Snyder's Superman. He's going through different phases. He's going through different things. He's growing and maturing and becoming more comfortable taking on the role of leadership because he's going to be the head of the Justice League now. So it's those kinds of things that I realize short-sighted people like DC Life, and I hate to call him short-sighted because he doesn't try to, offend anyone, but I'm about to offend him by saying he's short-sighted in the sense that he doesn't understand this is a developing story about Superman, and that the Superman you want to see, Zack Snyder is going to get there, but you have to wait. And so I don't believe in any way, shape, or form that Henry Cavill's rendition is not the ultimate rendition. I think it is. I think it's going to be the ultimate Superman, and that journey needs to be finished, which is why I'm saying restore the Snyderverse. And there are also some stories in between that need to be happening, like the Batman movie, like, the Amazons, following up on the Amazons and Diana going to see the Amazons, So I think that those fillers in between, even the Atom movie that needs to be developed a bit, I think those fillers in between are going to add to the final product, which will be Justice League 2 and Justice League 3. So I seriously think Superman's story has not been fully told, and therefore that is why the studio keeps on trying to replace. It's basically trying to strong arm the fans into thinking that no, we're cutting this short. You're gonna have to accept that, and we're going forward with this Superman. And you, as the fans, whether you're Snyder fans or otherwise, DC fans, need to push back and say, no, we're not going to buy your movies. We're not going to do until you finish this story here. We want to know how Superman evolves into the Superman we know. You have to keep on demanding that, and restore the Snyderverse is the way. That's why I said you need to know who's a real fan here, a DC fan, and who's not. The fact that some fans are saying, oh, he's in the black suit, and, that just shows how dark he is. They're fans who are not DC fans, because DC fans at least know about one of the biggest runs ever, which was the death and rise of Superman. In fact, they even did an animated series on that. And so you know why Superman came back in the black suit. And fans were demanding that. They were like, Superman need to come back in the black suit. So when Superman didn't come back in the black suit in Justice League, they were like, what the fuck? Because Zack Snyder had teased with Henry Cavill the black suit Superman coming. And the only thing, again, the real DC fans wanted was Henry Cavill to come back with a beard and the mullet. Okay? He was supposed to come back with the beard and a mullet. He didn't come back with a beard and a mullet. Again, there are DC fans that don't know anything about Dan Jurgens' great run because some of them were born way after the 90s, okay? Dan Jurgens' run came in the 90s. It was 1995, I think it was. So some of these DC fans don't go that far back. They only know DC in the context of maybe the 2000s and upwards, right? So there's all of that you have to cater to. The in-between, look up, Peter. So me personally, there's no in-between here, right? I choose Zack Snyder's Superman, period. I'm not in-between on this one, right? I obviously didn't go and see Gunn's Superman movie, and I'm not going to go see it. And the pieces that I saw are very revolting to me. It's very revolting. Like I said, when you take the when you open the Pandora's box, there's no turning back, right? The majority of DC fans out here, the Pandora's box was opened when Tim Burton gave us Batman 1989. And then it was reinforced by Christopher Nolan when he did Batman, the Batman trilogy. And then it really was impacted when Man of Steel came on the scene. And no matter how Hollywood tries to picture it as a critical failure, it didn't matter what Hollywood said or the critics said. That movie is a classic. And it was the foundation of the DCEU. And then you had Batman v Superman. And yes, critically, they panned it. But again, when you look at the audience scores, even for that chopped up movie, 63% of the people still find it fresh, still found it enjoyable, still enjoyed it. They didn't fully understand it. And I'll tell you the truth. When I first saw that movie in theaters, I went and saw that movie 10 times in theaters. And I was sold on Zack Snyder after that. Now, I don't like every single Zack Snyder movie I've seen. There are certain movies I am not really hot up on. But I started to investigate Zack Snyder more. I was introduced to Zack Snyder. My brother was introduced to Zack Snyder with 300. I wasn't interested in 300. I went back and watched 300 afterwards. But Zack Snyder got me with two movies. After Man of Steel, I went back and watched Watchmen. And I enjoyed the fuck out of Watchmen, right? But Watchmen was not like Man of Steel. It wasn't as realistic. Man of Steel was grounded, and Watchmen was kind of, it was supposedly set in the 80s, the 70s and the 80s, but well, not even the 70s and the 80s. I think it was the 70s and the 60s, right? But even so, I didn't particularly like the action in Watchmen, to be honest with you. Didn't really enjoy the sex in Watchmen either. I thought the Watchmen was good, though, because the story ended in a way. And at the time, I did not read Watchmen, the comic. Now, I'd seen an animated version of Watchmen, but I hadn't read the Watchmen comic. And it's still yet to actually fully read. I had browsed through the Watchmen comic and the series, but I never really fully read the graphic novel. So I still have to go back and Alan Moore's Watchmen. I still have to go back and read that and refresh it in my memory. But I was intrigued by the film, even though it flopped at the box office. It was quite intriguing. It was quite daring, a film. And I have not watched the director's cut. I haven't watched the ultimate cut of Watchmen yet, but I intend to get there. Now, I personally think Man of Steel is a much better film than Watchmen. Much more grounded film as well. I think Zack's best work was with Man of Steel, BVS, and Zack Snyder's Justice. I think that's his pinnacle work. He's done Army of the Dead. He's done Rebel Moon. His director cuts of Rebel Moon are just fantastic. I saw his Death of the Gods, if you want to call it that. I can't remember what the name of it is. Twilight of the Gods. I've seen that too. That was pretty good, that series. I just think, though, I've seen Sucker Punch. I actually didn't realize how deep Sucker Punch actually was. And there's a lot going on in Sucker Punch concerning the industry, which Zack was kind of exposing everybody to. And then I have seen Owls of Ga'Hoole. I really love Owls of Ga'Hoole. That I love. That movie's awesome. And Army of the Dead and Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead is not, I don't think it's Zack's best movie at all, but it's good. I think Army of the Dead has a lot of potential. But again, in terms of Zack Snyder's best movies, I think his crowning work so far has been Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Zack Snyder's Justice League. I think that's his crowning work. I do like Rebel Moon, though. I like Rebel Moon, the director's cut, very much, and I have to go back and see it. I'm not subscribed to Netflix anymore. I need to get a copy of that movie. I hope they're selling that movie on digital, because I do want to get the director cut, part 1 and 2 of Rebel Moon. Rebel Moon is an incredible movie, and of course, it's talking about Palestine and so on. And James Gunn, realizing that Zack Snyder was doing that, he decided to try and do that, put that in his Superman movie, and it's just so fucking disgusting. I don't know. This guy is just whatever. But like I said, I don't really like to talk about James Gunn. Okay, I don't like to talk about his movies. I don't really like to talk about him. Okay, so I prefer not to elaborate on him too much. But here's the point that I'm making. You say Cavill's Superman wasn't dark and was hopeful, but for a lot of people, he gives off dark, gritty, godlike injustice Superman vibes. Even if you point out his humanity and hopeful moments, it's overshadowed by the world building and grounded in reality tone and how emotionless he feels at times, almost too stoic for the sake of it and for aura farming. And I'm like, Cavill Superman, and he doesn't have a terrible Clark Kent. I just feel like Zack Snyder was trying to deconstruct and build up Cavill Superman to what he should have been right off the bat, but didn't want to give us that version of Superman. He wanted to work towards it his way. Now, first of all, Buddy needs to know this wasn't Zack Snyder's movie, and this wasn't Zack Snyder's Superman. Okay? This is David Goyer's writing. David Goyer wrote Man of Steel. So Zack was directing a movie about Superman, which David Goyer wrote. Okay? So when you keep on talking about Zack Snyder and Zack Snyder and Zack Snyder, no, stupid ass. It's David Goyer. And David Goyer and Zack Snyder agreed. And Zack Snyder, even the breaking of Zod's net, that's David Goyer. That's not Zack Snyder. David Goyer wrote that. Okay? And then BVS is a combination of David Goyer's writing and Chris Terrio's writing. So you need to know that certain people write stories. Okay? Superman wasn't Zack Snyder's idea. It was David Goyer and Christopher Nolan's idea. Just so you know. Was Superman dark? Absolutely not. Was the world dark? Absolutely not. If you're saying the world was dark, you're saying today's world is dark. That's what you're saying. And today's world, when you wake up every morning, is it in darkness and despair and hopelessness? No. So what the fuck are you talking about? Like, seriously. Realism is suddenly darkness. No. Superman 1978 was a different time. People were more naive. Okay? And so that was that time. Today is not like that. People are more skeptical about things. People have more information. So people aren't going to just take things on their merits and not critically think about things. So when Superman comes into a world like that, and especially if we find out there are aliens in our world and they're very powerful and they can do a lot of things and they're kind of controlling things out here, that doesn't make us feel good. People are afraid what they don't understand. This is common sense. Okay, so that's what happens if Superman comes into the world. It's not gritty. It's not dark. It's reality. Okay? And Superman fighting the bad guys, that doesn't make it gritty and dark either. Just saying. Outlaw Riddick says, I like both. Man of Steel and Superman are great films. Man of Steel has incredible action scenes and story. And Superman is more comic Superman, which is great, but I love my dark and gritty story. I'm supportive of DC of old. I'm so excited to see what happens next. So there are people who try to play it middle of the line, saying, I love both. But usually they're gun fans. That's why they're saying that. I would like to see something. But they know they can't downright trash Man of Steel. I thought so. I love discussing movies and games and review movies. Yesterday is history, tomorrow's a mystery. But today is a gift. That's why it's called The Present. Entertainment and recreation, England, United Kingdom. Okay. So maybe that's the reason he's part of the industry again, which is okay. That's all right. Yafani Rabbit says, the dark gritty one has no meaning if there wasn't happiness and joy to begin with. The impact of a character going bad relies on them being a pinnacle of good to begin with. Neither were great. I just dislike Gunn. I'm be real. The new Superman isn't any more hopeful than Man of Steel. It's just more lighthearted. A mix of both. He's an alien living among humans. Writers are going left or right with it just to make a Superman. It's not that hard. It is hard to make Superman. That's what they don't understand. Both versions can work. Neither of these are Superman. So these are all people who are saying what they're saying. It is what it is. Lighthearted and hopeful is the safest, but you can do dark and gritty version. Well written. Christopher Reeves one, cool. Superman works better with a lighthearted, hopeful tone. Okay. They both work. At the risk of getting attacked, the Christopher Reeve movies, I like both versions. North Star says it's not dark and gritty. It's for fans who grew up and wanted more mature stories to enjoy the characters at different phases in their lives. The other version is for the ones who got older but still want to view the characters as they did when they were kids. Many executives wanted the one that just came out. Fans wanted Man of Steel, BVS, Zack Snyder Justice League. We're fighting a studio. The corporations are really the mouthpiece for the company. But which one is Cavill and which one is David? Because I saw Cavill save Luthor and David said, no, Crypto, come here. Or Cavill kill a genocider and suffer for it, and David kill another Luthor's victim, his clone, and make a joke. There you go. Man of Steel may be at times dark and gritty, but it also has a hopeful theme. However, Superman 2025 is too whiny, too childish, and too many corny and stupid jokes. Looking at your replies, you clearly did this tweet in bad faith. Do better, man. Yeah, Marcos Cantero. He understands. He's starting to see through it. This guy is a shill for the industry. Snyder's version was never dark and gritty. There you go. It was just about Superman being brought into a real world and how the world would actually react to his existence. Man of Steel is about him accepting humanity, and BVS is about humanity fully accepting him. When rewatching Zack's DC, he seemed so much more interested in these characters' abilities and their personalities. He made a cool showcase of power, while the new Superman movie is all about who Superman is as a character. I don't think this guy watched any of those movies. Let me just see something. Sharp Art is his name, because that makes no sense. Yep, digital artist, graphic designer, writer for the. Okay, we get you. You're in the industry. Gotcha. Lighter and hopeful. Superman thinks the beacon of hope in every same guy again, same kind of talk like the other guy. And guess what? Welcome to my page where I post art that I do. There you go. Industry guy. Let's keep it moving. Superman being dark and edgy was done before, like in his cartoons in the 1940s. Superman, the animated series leader. No, he's not dark and edgy there. Again, I don't know. This guy's an animation dude. He does animation. Looney Tune corrector. Literally works with WB. Soup should always be a beacon of hope from the get-go. His value system is what installed him in human presence. Man of Steel dropped the ball in that respect. Let's see who Mr. 95% is. So many of our dreams at first seem impossible. They seem improbable, and then when we summon, they will soon become inevitable. As Christopher Reeve. Sydney, Australia. It doesn't say much. Let's see. Coming up quick. Tickets are left. Alex, the indie guy, says Crusaders Con is coming up quick and limited. Tickets are left. Okay. Only 10 train tickets are left. Decided to show an open 4 months ago. A very talented son, Brandon, has his new book out today. It seems like this guy also is in the industry, and you can see he's promoting Merc from different people. Lighthearted and hopeful. Dark and gritty would have worked well if it was Injustice Superman, which Snyder was, of course, setting up and never complained. England, he doesn't say what he is. He doesn't say what he is at all. It's very interesting. So it's got to be somebody in the industry again, because he's not saying who he is at all. Everyone loves the right side more because he embodies the character perfectly, but the dark and gritty work best, in my opinion. He's just what a Superman in real life would be. And I said dark and gritty? Superman as a character is lighthearted, hopeful. He can push to be darker, like in the Action Comics 775, but his intent nature is gay. Mr. Just Dance Geek. Oh boy. Oh boy, this is definitely a James Gunn fan. Dance teacher, choreographer, adjudicator, and most importantly, a dad. Entertainment and recreation. Toronto, Canada. Okay, there you go. Superman was never dark and gritty. That's some bullshit Snyder came up with. Wow. Okay. As I get older, I'm running out of fucks to give. Joined January 2010. Our expectations for you were low, but holy fuck. Seems like a normal person. I don't know if he's an executive or not. I can't tell. He doesn't have a lot of information to tell us who he actually is. In the middle, aka Superman Returns, which is a flop. Low Snyder's take is in line with comics. Dumb as fuck Superman is in line with what non-Snyder fans think of him. Yep, pretty much. This is my response. What dark and gritty version is that? Have you ever watched Man of Steel, BVS, UE, Zack Snyder Justice League, You Corporate Shill? I'm proud to say I never watched that corporate slop flop called Superman 2025. From all appearances, it is the same trash as Aquaman 2, Blue Beetle, The Flash, The Suicide Squad, Shazam 2, BOP, that's Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman 84, and Justice League 2017. And I gotta tell you, that's how I feel about it. Nobody responded, but a lot of people liked it. Dave says, anyone that mentions Henry's portrayal of Superman as dark and gritty has absolutely no idea what they're talking about. I have to agree. Both are helpful. Both is more important in the darkest time. I don't think the first one is dark. It's just serious. I agree. Cavill. Man of Steel Claire's. Welcome to the real world, buddy. Glee does not mean hope. Exactly. Cavill wasn't dark. He was gritty, but Cavill works better. I wouldn't say he was gritty either. It depends on what he means by it. This guy says somewhere in the middle. Jesus symbolism works best for Superman. I always prefer the one who doesn't often get mad at Lewis and who prioritizes saving humans over CGI squirrels. Call him dark and gritty all you want, but he's everything that you clowns think David's version is. Just better. I agree. So they consider epicness dark and gritty these days. Exactly. I think a lot of people are getting the point, at least the Snyder fans. The sincere and epic take, which is, again, Henry Cavill. Axe the box office by extension. Okay. I like the one who grew as a person and gave his life to save humanity. Not a fan of the one who yelled at his girlfriend after she questioned his journalistic integrity for interviewing himself. So in the end, Cavill is the hopeful one. Kal-El is the name of this guy. Let's see who he really is. Yeah, he's a Snyder fan. Okay. So he's a Snyder fan. Raptor Rancher says, restore the Snyderverse, release the air cut. I don't think Man of Steel is dark and gritty at all. I have to agree. He's a Snyder fan, though. This works for me. This guy's named Lex Wayne. Let's see what's going on with Lex Wayne. Lex Wayne. Snyder fan. Okay. The Warriors Forge says, Gunn's Diaper Man wasn't hopeful at all. He spent the entire movie needing someone else to save him. He let Luthor murder a guy in cold blood and did nothing. Let's see here. I guess he's a Snyder. Yep, he's a Snyder fan as well. Snyder fan. Okay. The bright, hopeful one that accepts humanity. GO000. See what he is. He's a Snyder fan. He's a Snyder fan. Oh, yeah. He's saying restore the Snyderverse as well. Mad City Construction says, Henry Superman is more human. He has all the emotions like anger, fear, hate, etc. Whereas Gunn Superman assumes that he has emotions when he speaks more words than real action. I'm more human than anyone. Henry felt more human and felt more connected to Henry than David's. I felt more connected to Henry than David's. Okay. Okay. Mad City Ideas, not a Snyder fan. That's interesting. How do I know that? I look at his connections. Tom Jr. says, I choose Cavill Superman's version over the weaker version Gunn made. This is Tom Jr. Let's see who he is. He's also not a Snyder fan. He's not. I see him quoting Sammy, though. Let's see what else. Yeah, he's quoting Sammy and Supergirl. He seems to be connected to the Snyder fans, though. Tom Jr. says, Superman by Snyder. James Gunn is proof former Marvel director shouldn't direct DC movies. Wow. He definitely likes Zack Snyder's Justice League. He seems to be connected to Snyder fans, so I'll call him a Snyder fan. Gay Robin, wow. Dark and gritty, when it's just a man who tried his best and loved his mom. Okay, Gay Robin, though. That's kind of messed up. Just your average homo who simps for superheroes. Yo, that's kind of crazy. I'm not gonna lie, that's crazy. I don't know if he's trolling or what. He definitely is a Snyder fan. Well, that's crazy. Yo. And he calls himself a homo. Gary Mal says nothing gritty about Superman Snyder. So you see a lot of people are saying the same thing, but they seem to be Snyder fans. Nothing gritty about Snyder Superman, only the world around him being more real and less cotton candy. Yep. Gary Mal, I don't want to respond. I just want to see who he is. Yep, he's a Snyder fan. Steppenwolf of Snyderverse, Aaron Jaeger, Animatrix, and 67 others. He's a Snyder fan as well. Now, I only see one person who wasn't a Snyder fan. I know Peter Banning is a Snyder fan for sure. Compared to Absolute Superman first, Zack Snyder's Justice is not dark and gritty, just as serious as DCAU, New 32, Jurgens, Burns, etc. Justin, I never saw a dark and gritty version. I saw a realistic approach to the character. How would the world react to a super being from another planet? So all of these people, I'm sure they never seen each other, but this is just the responses they give. Father, Doctor of Sales, Psych, he's a Snyder fan. Anthro Fitness, Hockey, he's a Snyder fan. I know that. Just look at the people he's connected to, and they're Snyder fans. That's how you know. Dark and gritty, Henry Cavill had more emotional moments than David in Man of Steel alone. This is Arjun Sankar. He's an Indian, obviously. Probably a Snyder fan. He's only followed by Alexander the Goat. Okay. He's not necessarily a Snyder fan. 20 years in Gotham, Alfred. How many good guys are left? How many stay that way? Well, he's a fan of BVS, though. And Excalibur. Let's see when he came on here. August 2024. Okay. Tollywood. Okay. Nah, he's a Snyder fan. 5 years ago, these absolute banger trailers released on the same day. Last time DC fans were eating good. But he likes the Batman. He likes the Batman. Seems to like Transformers. Definitely likes Snyder's he definitely likes Snyder's Snyder Cut. That's for sure. Oh, he likes BVS a lot. Show and tell. Okay. Oh yeah, he's a big Snyder fan. So this is a big Snyder fan again. CMG feels. Don't worry, I'm going through as much as I can here. But work just depends on what you're trying to portray in the set universe. You could make Batman goofy if you wanted to. It just depends on the iteration. It hasn't succeeded though. The man who gets jiggy with CMG exports. He's definitely not a Snyder fan. That's for sure. So he's just a guy who he thinks, depending on what. I'll tell you in Spanish, that Superman of guns isn't taken seriously around these parts. It's simply extremely childish to us. This is Retro Jesus. And he's not a Snyder fan. That's interesting. So this is not, we've gotten now two not Snyder fans. I'm pretty sure about it. I prefer Superman at his core, but the dark and gritty one could work at certain instances depending on the world and its writing. But it shouldn't be the starting point for a world where Batman's almost inherently no different. And this guy's an MCU fan. He's also a Real Madrid fan. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Joe. Snyder's style isn't dark and gritty. I feel like that's the wrong way to describe his DC films, in my opinion. I think the word mature accurately describes Zack's storytelling style for these characters. And I think this is Joe, who's probably a Snyder fan, right? Let's see. It's got to be. Yep, he is. Okay. I don't know Joe, but he seems to be a Snyder fan. Talon says a balance of both would be nice, but instead we have two versions where one is either too dark, even when he's hopeful, or the other too bright, even when he's serious. Superman's adaptations are still the best in animations, but I had to choose. I'd be the latter. So he's more about gun, which is okay. Menace and Dumbbells says, simply put, the better take is Superman, not domestic MCU Guardians of the Galaxy one. The only chance to save DC live action is to restore the Snyderverse. He's obviously a Snyder fan. Okay. So we have two people who are not Snyder fans who've been saying that they prefer Man of Steel and they don't think that it was gritty and dark. A Man says they both work. One is as a realistic, more relatable version that is done justice in Man of Steel, and the other, as we've seen so many times in the past, Superman movies. Superman 2025 being terrible doesn't mean that version of Superman doesn't work. So he thinks it's terrible, but but it could work, he's saying. He's a gamer, dad, loves cats, chaotic, good, shrewd, skeptical. I stream old school games on TikTok. He's not a Snyder fan, but he is followed by Ben Affleck's The Batman. So that's interesting. He's followed by him, but he's not a Snyder fan. Steve O. Steve O is I think he's a Snyder fan. I'll take the Superman that feels like he could be based in reality. Yeah, he's probably a Snyder fan. Let's just see. I think this is a troll account though. This is Chucky. Oh yeah, definitely. Snyder Cut released next. Released the air cut. Yeah. He's a Snyder fan. GT says lighthearted and hopefully definitively works better, but I personally think there should be more of a balance between them than straight up fully leaning on one or the other. Grandpa Thumb says, I like the dark and gritty beginning. This was based on the New 52 where people didn't trust the heroes and they had to fight to get the trust of the people. Justice League War shows this. Grandpa Thumb is his name. I don't think he's a Snyder fan. I am correct. So that's interesting. Super Cyan Prick says, we live in a dark, gritty world or a lighthearted, hopeful one? It's an interesting question. And I am here, he says. He's followed by Stuntman Mike. So he's part of the industry like Stuntman Mike. So I don't know. He's in the industry, but he's saying I picked the dark, gritty one. I would say though that anyway, the Batman. I prefer both. It's like Marvel and DC. Marvel lighthearted, genre of superheroes, and DC more dark. So we've got about four people so far who are not Snyder fans, who are sort of in the I pick the one that's more serious. And they're not Snyder fans, I can tell you that. Sebi Clemens says Snyder's version works so much better as it doesn't spoon feed the audience. That said, there are problems with it, and I can't help but think a combo of the two would be perfect. So he's talking about a combination as well. Sebi Clemens. And yeah, he's not a Snyder fan. That's interesting. Clark Joseph Kent of the Snyderverse says Cavill started darker, but went on to become more brighter and hopeful. Okay. And I'm guessing he's followed by some outskirt, I guess, Snyder fans, because I guess Beckel movies and so on. He seems to be somebody in the industry as well. Yep. After Latif 19, Entertainment Recreation. So I have to assume that this guy is also part of the industry. And so I have to say again, he's not a Snyder fan per se. Mike November says, and that's about 6 of them. Well, what a childish comparison. There are two very different versions, two very valid versions. Just there are different writings of Superman in the comics. They'll also be different in the movie. This is Mike November. He's definitely got the mullet Superman there. He speaks in Spanish, and he's not a Snyder fan. Now, he's saying that he's saying both of them are kind of relevant. I guess he's in the industry. Mixmaster says Man of Steel isn't dark and gritty. It's grounded and straightforward. It doesn't make use of cringy comedy or internet culture. It's an actual solar Superman film. Yes. All those things are ticked. The question is, who are you? And wow, he is not a Snyder fan, even though he just did Carlos Digital. Oh, wow. Yeah, he's not. Yep. He probably is a Snyder fan, but he's not part of the Snyder fan network. All right, I don't really see him attached to any of the Snyder people. Hold on a second. Let me just see something, though, before I go there. Let's see something. Let's see what this counts. He joined in 2021. Okay. Somewhere in the middle, That's what I remember from JLU, etc. Superman could joke, etc., but he also had gravitas in serious situations. Cornsweat doesn't have that. Wow. It's like totally disrespected Cornsweat right there. Welcome to the official Achilles page. From brutal honesty to breakdowns that go deep. This is where warriors of cinema unite. Occasional gaming deep dive also. Okay, so he's a guy in the industry as well. But he doesn't think that Cornsweat cuts it. So we have had about 8 or 9 people who are not Snyder fans. We're pretty sure about that. And they're of the opinion like us, like Snyder fans. Okay? Star Wars Nerd says, I love Superman. I love both Superman. But if I'm being honest, though I never really viewed Snyder's Superman as dark or gritty. There you go. Perhaps the environment around him, sure. But I never viewed him as a dark character. I'm going to continue this in separate text because X won't allow long passages. And he laughs. Star Wars Nerd. So this guy's definitely not a Snyder fan. And there you go. He's not a Snyder fan. All right. Okay. And he starts to explain himself. So he's explaining himself. In Man of Steel, Clark sought to save lives whenever people were in grave danger, and so on and so on. So I'm just telling you, that's about 11 people so far. I don't see Cavill's ad dark and gritty as dark and gritty. Emotionally going through it in a different way, in a different world. I like both of these. So he's also probably an industry guy. 12, that's 12 people. Manuel Draw says, I don't know what you mean by dark and gritty. His costume was black in Justice League, but that's about it. Manuel Draw does not look like, again, somebody who's a Snyder fan, and he is not. So that's interesting. Robert G. German, who I know is a Snyder fan, he said dark and gritty version. Grinning Bat says, neither works best. They're two very different telling of a similar story. What do I prefer? Preferably the lighthearted one, simply because it echoes the comics I grew up with. Okay. Grinning Bat. Unwilling to lie. I am the hero where I can be, and the villain when I must be. You're all my race, my people. My heart holds you in reference. Creative Society. Okay. Akuma45 says, man, that say a lot about Superman brand. People's main gripe, he didn't feel like Superman in Man of Steel. I've never seen that with no other superheroes. People love the changes to Batman and Spider-Man, their movies, but Superman, they're up in arms. Akuma45, interesting. There's a reason the S stands for hope if you make him dark and gritty. You're not making Superman, you're making Kryptonian Batman. Let Superman be what he represents, because we already have a Batman and don't need two. The one that gives you hope. And this guy's rocking hard with Palestine, but somehow he's a James Gunn fan. Mar30 says, each version has good qualities and the defects, despite what you want. Oh, no. You're not going to do that to me, Mar13. You was the one that was arguing with me about a Henry Cavill Superman. And he said, while I like Henry Cavill Superman better, maybe the hopeful version works better in the long run, or hopefully it does. Again, Mark 13, I don't want to hear you, man. You a gun fan, and you playing like you's a Snyder fan. You're a gun fan. By the way, Mark 13, let's look at him, because I know this guy. Banner created by the amazing Osmosis GFX. He's a wrestler. Mod 13 was arguing with me about this. Jocelyn C. Medusa Orby says, I pity Cornwet. He had to try to fill the shoes of Cavill. Yeah. Yup. Fitness Life, Buddha Yoga instructor, help the mind find higher consciousness, AMC shareholder. Oh, she's a shareholder in AMC, though. And this is her doing her yoga shit. Superman is the best grossing WB movie this summer. Yet Guntards claim it's the greatest Superman film ever. Ooh, so funny. I don't think she's a Snyder fan, but man, She called them guntards. That's hilarious. Andre Vavestic, that's 13 of them. Vavistic official. You don't need Superman to be a goofball to be hopeful. Both versions are hopeful, but they go about it in different ways. For me, Snyder's version does it best. It shows a very human Superman that we also see as this godlike symbol for Earth, presenting both sides well. Andre Vivisic, ex official expert. Love gaming, film, anime. I'm part-time troll, so don't take me too seriously. When I am serious, I'll still probably piss you off. Boil the noodles. So he's not a Snyder fan either. He's a gamer. That's 14. See, this is what I was trying to tell you guys. A lot of these guys, they may be DC fans or fans of good movies, and they're going to label them Snyder fans because they say something that is true. Zack Snyder's Man of Steel is a much better movie than Superman 2025, right? In fact, if I'm sure Bo DeMayo would tell you that. James Gunn's a fan of Man of Steel, right? They actually made Brightburn off of inspiration from Man of Steel. So, when I think about these movies, I'm thinking, that, that these guys speaking here, to me, this is being objective about the thing. Damon Frey says, I like the dark and gritty in Snyder's version. I like the Superman version in Clark and Lewis with Kane, Dean Kane, that is. The thing is, he can be both. He was raised by humans after all. His Kryptonian side is just a supercharged warrior with a vast knowledge and tech at his disposal. These dogs are barking so hard because the garbage truck is coming. And they just constantly, you probably hearing the dogs in the background. They just constantly bark and bark and bark. Dogs are weird. Dark, gritty, and reality-based Superman, says Sean L. So he picks the dark, gritty reality. I don't think it's dark and gritty, though. That's the thing. It's realistic. Alexander the Greatest. Oh, by the way, Damon Frey. What is he? Let's see what Damon Frey is. Yep. It's not a Snyder cultist either. He's not a Snyder fan. So you see, guys, the guys are coming up the street, picking up the garbage, and these dogs are just raising hell. Sean L, dark gritty base. Let's just see who Sean L is. He's a Marvel DC fanboy. Motivation is Henry Cavill. Oh, he's a Henry Cavill fan. He's got Zack Snyder there. I wouldn't call him a Snyder cultist. I wouldn't call him a Snyder bro. I wouldn't call him a Snyder fan, even though he's a big Henry Cavill fan, though. That's what's up. Alexander the Great is a Snyder cultist, the realistic and badass one, not always dark. Zoom Fate says, the dark and gritty version, bro. Indeed, not read any comics at all. Zoom Fate is saying you didn't read comics. He's a Snyder fan, though. I think it looks like, yeah, he's definitely a Snyder fan. He calls them real DC fans. Yeah, he's a Snyder fan. Anyways, though, what's important to realize is Damon Frey is another one. BSN. Finally saw Superman 2025. It's not too hopeful and lighthearted, actually. That's BSN. So BSN's probably not a Snyder fan, and there you go. Yeah, he's not a Snyder fan. Oh, he likes Michael Jordan. Oh, he liked the Lego Batman movie. Ooh, he follows Zack Snyder, though. Follows Zack Snyder. Interesting. Michael Jordan. Ooh, there's a lot of Jordan stuff going on these days. I thought I was the only guy. Blast V Zone R says, I like a dark and gritty version can work if he starts lighthearted, but something happens which changes his tune. Dark and gritty. Watch again BVS movie. There's still light of hope in there. This guy, again, he doesn't look like he's a Snyder fan, and he is not a Snyder fan. Wow. So we have like 16 of them right now. P Truggling Atlanta Sports says, I think one somewhere in the middle is perfect Superman. Daydam says both work fine. It depends on how often they're used and how good the projects overall are. The Hush edit says Dark can be hopeful. This is a guy who likes things like, obviously, as you can see, Daredevil. Oh, come on, motherfucker. Tom, video editor, video photographer, gamer, restore the Snyderverse. Oh, he's a Snyder fan too. God damn. Yeah, you got me right there, brother. He clearly likes Daredevil. Oh God says, I will go with Corn Sweat, but Henry's great as Superman. He was just wasted, honestly. Okay. Ricky says, wasn't even dark and gritty. I just took the material more seriously. So here's Ricky. Is he a Snyder fan? That's what I want to know. No, he's not. Look at that. Now, Ricky is probably an industry guy because here he is, New Island, New Dinosaurs, new trailer. Ooh, yes, Jurassic World. Oh, yeah, he reposted Zack Snyder stuff. He's a Snyder fan, all right. Oh, yeah, he posted Sammy as well. That's very interesting. He's a Snyder fan, but he's also into a lot of stuff. But oh, definitely, he's a Snyder fan. Look at this. He loves, oh, yeah, he does love Snyder stuff. But he's not like a Snyder fan like some Snyder fans on there. Oli says, lighthearted and hopeful. I would like to see a proper, good, dark version of the character, but I prefer him being hopeful. Okay. Zendor says, which take on Superman works best? The version that isn't depicting Superman by source material, or the version depicting Superman as he's intended? Gee, I don't know. Mr. J. Sar says, hopeful always, not always lighthearted. I would agree. Cornsweat's version wasn't always lighthearted, but always hopeful. Dark and gritty one for me. The other one is for kids. Briggs. I wouldn't even say that's for kids, man. Oh yeah, he's not a. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, look at that. Wow. Ooh, 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 ooh. Okay, okay. Yeah, this guy, he's not a Snyder fan, but man, he likes Cavill. To be honest, I don't care much about any superhero film much, but Superman was boring as fuck. It felt like watching a random DC episode of some series. He's talking about Superman 2025. Feels like Suicide Squad. I got bored halfway. Everything's just so unserious and jokes everywhere, no feeling of tension. You know this not a Snyder fan. You know Fruit's not a Snyder fan. Oh no, he's not a Snyder fan. So there you go. Van Gavis says it's not about dark versus colorful. It's about real lessons versus fairy tales. Man of Steel all day. This is Veggie Vegas. So we're gonna reach 20 people. Yeah, I thought so. Well, he's an Indian homie though. Oh, he likes he's a Snyder fan. Look at this. Look at this. He's an Indian homie too. He's an Indian homie. He's not a deep Snyder fan, but he's an Indian homie. Let's see. Is this number 20? Oh, this version, it doesn't need oversaturation to feel like he's actually so good. He feels everything. You can literally feel his goodness in the 3 films he's in. This is O. Who is O? So I'm trying to figure out. Oh, he's a Snyder fan. Hold on. Go back again. Hey, man. I was looking for O, man. Not Vega. The fuck. O, yes. O, yes. Okay. Who is O? Okay. Yeah, he's a Snyder fan. Okay, let's go back. He's a Snyder fan, so he's not one. The colorful and hopeful one says Abhishek Boss. He's from Mumbai, India. Definitely a Snyder fan. Dark and gritty. That's iffy. So- okay, he just likes dark and gritty movies. He's not a Snyder fan, but he's a dark and gritty guy. He's definitely not a Snyder fan. So Iffy is a DC fan, obviously, but he's not a Snyder fan. So that's 20. So we just went through 20 fans who obviously are DC fans because this is a DC Marvel post, who clearly like Man of Steel for various reasons over Superman 2025, but they'd probably be lumped with Snyder fans, but they're not necessarily okay, there's I guess you'd call them Snyder fans, but they're not like when they talk about Snyder Bros or Snyder cultists, that kind of thing. They label them at they're not that. Another person who's like that is actually what's his name? Um forgot his name. He has a YouTube channel. He actually likes James Gunn's content and Zack Snyder's content, even though he didn't like the Superman movie. Jeremy D. Hollis says, lighthearted and hopeful. Batman's the one who could work with either dark or lightheartedness. Scoo Hoop says both. These characters were never meant to be stagnant entities. Rez says, this phrase itself is a bad fate one. Clearly shows your bias. Who is Rez, though? I've never heard of Rez. Rez is a 3D artist. He's from Kuala Lumpur. He's just planetary supremacy. He's basically just an artist. Probably works in the industry. And he's not necessarily a Snyder fan, like how they talk about. This is 21. Prometheus says, of course, the lighthearted one. That's the original. The dark and gritty one was refreshing, controversial take. Problem is that it was pushed too much to the point that a tyrant Superman is no longer a what if. Injustice, Homelander, Brightburn, Invincible. Okay, I don't follow you, brother, because I just don't see you. Henry Cavill Superman is not dark and gritty. I agree with that. He was just put in the most challenging situations, which is the best way to tell a Superman story, which I also agree with. But are you a Snyder fan? I never heard of you. Let's see who you are. Joined in 2015. He's not even a Snyder fan. That's interesting. That's interesting. So that's 22. HGC says dark and gritty. Basic Soups is a bit cheesy, awful costume too, and essentially a starter superhero in DC. He's just a bit meh. The new film wasn't too bad. My kid enjoyed it, but it's nothing on the majority of comic. It's nothing different to the majority of comic book films. HGC is his name, and no, he's not a Snyder fan. Hive Gaming, community geeks, gamers, servers, creators, large Discord community, crossplay, PvP hosts, etc. So you can see. And this is what I was talking about with DC fans. You will find a large section of DC fans who are not Snyder bros. They're not Snyder cultists. You'll label them Snyder cultists, but they're not. This is the 23rd person that's not really affiliated. They like Snyder's movies, but they also like other things in DC. And not just DC, some of them like other movies, period, right? They're cinephiles, or sometimes they're not cinephiles, whatever. Nick says, Snyder's Superman is more epic, badass, and godlike. Gun Superman is more like Superman. Okay. I don't know what that means. Oh, homie is a cross-dresser. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Yo. We meet all kinds. This is also not a Snyder fan. Okay, that's clearly not a Snyder fan. Static the Hedgehog says, lighthearted and hopeful, 100%. Metron says, Gunn's version is more true to the character I started reading in 1992. It's a better version of him than even the Christopher Reeve one. Cringe. I don't know. This is a real person. Is this a real person? It says R. Reddick 82. Okay, let me see. Hold on a second, buddy. Morbius Dimension joined August 2021. 44 things. Okay, he likes women. I can't really say much. Oh wow. Oh wow. Oh wow. Yo, homie. David Cornston and James Gunn wrapping up on Superman. Wow. So he's probably a James fan. Ugh. Dude got porn on his thing. Homie like window, so that's all right, I guess. Bartman says it's like asking if Venom is better. I don't know what that means. Should Batman kill people? Question. I'm not following you on that. Honestly, lighthearted and hopeful, Superman is the best Superman in my opinion. So these are the gun fans, I guess. John Contreras. Ooh, that's so cringe right now. I don't like looking at that. BX Dude says both. I feel cinematically the darker version would work if done in context. Like we get the takeover of the world, Lost Lewis, his kid type situation. Robbie Stevens says Man of Steel. Is Robbie Stevens a Snyder fan? Film buff, horror lover, wrestling fan, movie reviews on YouTube, TikTok. So he's an industry guy. It's followed by John Baker and Geek Bland. This is Robbie Stevens right here. He's all about wrestling. He's not a Snyder fan, really. No, he's not really part of the Snyder fandom. So he just likes this guy. Is what it is. Chad says, I actually don't think Cavill's Soups properly understood was dark and gritty. I think he was hopeful. So Chad, are you a Snyder fan? That's what I want to know. Follower of Christ. Definitely a Star Wars fan. Be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong. Let all that you do be done in love. Corinthians 16, 13 to 14. He's a Christian. He lives in Maryland. Co-host of Apologetics 315 podcast. He's an apologetic as well. And yeah, he's not a Snyder fan, but he likes Snyder's stuff more. Oh, he's a Henry Cavill fan. Yeah, this one hurt. He'll always be Zod to me. There you go. Yeah. This guy's Chad is not a Snyder fan. So there you go. That's 25 of them. That's interesting. Did you mean we have to compare cosplayers now? No, bars. My standards are not that low. New soup is trash. Wow. Exhaustic coup. 1 million soon. Wow. This guy's not a Snyder fan, and he just like totally dissed Gunn's Superman. He thinks it's trash. And I've seen YouTubers who've been saying that they think Gunn Superman is trash as well. So this is not surprising. And they don't really like Zack Snyder's version. So I'm just trying to show you how we have DC fans. That's 26, by the way. We have DC fans who are not Snyder fans. Or shall I say, yeah, that's a fair way to say it. Not Snyder bros, not Snyder cultists. I am a Snyder fan. They may call me a Snyder bro. They may call me a Snyder cultist because I talk about restoring the Snyderverse. These guys are not that, and they're being honest, and they'll be lumped in with Snyder cultists and so on. And yes, we have some Gunn fans who like. They like Superman because they like James Gunn, but we also have here a lot of industry people, and even some of the 26 people I just mentioned. They're also industry people. They have industry people in there, so it's very interesting, right? You see the guys who are saying both. I don't mind different versions. Superman works best. But clearly, the person who's saying both, I don't mind, they're probably industry people as well. And you know what? I'm going to have a look and see if Ray Dive is that or if it's just, no boxing, no life. So this guy's a boxer, actually. He was just saying both. Okay. Both says Superman works best like this guy. Dasher says hard to pick. They both have their charm, but I kind of love the hopefulness of the classic vibe. Okay. Sir Sagir says hopeful. Superman would be the symbol of hope. Leave the grit to Batman. So Sergir, he looks like he's an actual fan. Adol says lighthearted and hopeful. These are all Gun fans, though. Marvel Science, well, clearly this guy's a Marvel fan. Hopefully one, obviously, not even a debate. To me, characters like Spider-Man and Superman work better than lighthearted stories. The lighter is far more comic book accurate, so these are the Gun fans. And this a couple of them in a row, actually. The Almighty Reset. Man of Steel has its mistakes, but it is indeed better. This is Almighty Reset. Let's see if they're a Snyder fan or not. And guess what? He's not a Snyder fan. Wow. So that leads us to 28, 27, sorry, my bad. Both are good in their own respects. The Snyderverse Superman was not dark and gritty. I don't know why people keep saying that. That's Terry. And Terry is also not a Snyder fan. So you see, it's just that I think that Heat makes 27. I think that there's a lot of people out here who think the same way. If you watch a movie, you know that's not a dark and gritty Superman. You know that. I don't know why they say dark and gritty. Terry's a real person, by the way. The Flames of Disaster, Connor says, light and hopeful in a dark and gritty world. Okay, so this is probably 28. Probably not a Snyder fan. Which is why he still uses there you go. He's not a Snyder fan. So this is very intriguing, though. This is very interesting. Gabs Batista says, which take on Superman works best? Superman or no Superman? Connor J says, which take on Superman works best? Superman or no Superman? So Connor J and Gabs Batista are the same person. You know what I mean? They're the same person. So these are troll accounts. Let me see what's going on here. They're not real accounts, and that makes sense that they only have a few followers because they basically repeated themselves. Victor Coyle says the one that makes room for both. Light and hopeful all day long, says Callum. Damn Graham says lighthearted. I love dark and gritty. Prefer it. Previous 32. He's obviously a Star Wars fan. Says it's not dark and gritty at all. It would have been in the next movie though. Yeah, he likes General Grievous. So there you go. Grievous. Another Grievous fan. Nah, this is the same person, man. Don't even try that. This is the same person. It's the same person. See, this is what I'm telling you. They have troll accounts. So he repeated himself twice. A fake account and a real one. The lighthearted and hopeful Superman is literally Superman. So he said one thing on one hand and then he flipped it over on the other hand. Lighthearted and hopefully definitely Man of Steel. George Pacheco. Let me see if we can get 30 people. Yep, he's the 20, what is he, the 28th? Okay, he's the 28th person. Let's get 30 people here. Dark and gritty is not Superman. Okay, that's Jabby. Lighthearted, no question. Yelly Superman standing proud in his crease suit isn't hopeful. He's a Snyder fan. Like a Snyder fan on here. Lighthearted and hopeful, it's not even close. Dark and gritty says ironized guy. And he's not a Snyder fan. That's 29. I love both. Hope, always hope. The new Superman looks like he's wearing a big size pajamas. Says Kai Ocean. IT Solution Software, 3D printing, adventure, old school gamer, Dark Souls player, gadget, and computer geek. So he is number 30 right there. So at least we have 30 fans in here. I don't know how many of these reviews I went through. 30 fans in here that are DC fans, and they are just basically saying, hey, looky here. This is how I see this movie. I went and watched this movie, and I don't like it. The Peacemaker, this guy's obviously a gun fan. Bro just wants to divide comment section, but to give my thoughts, Superman should be lighthearted and hopeful. That's how he is in the comics, so follow the source material. You don't know the comics, buddy. You certainly are not following the source material because the latest comic in Superman looks like this, ladies and gentlemen. These guys are so stupid. And literally, this is selling right now. These guys are so stupid. This is actually Superman right now. This is the current version of Superman. So dark and gritty? Yeah, this guy is dark and gritty. This is the epitome of dark and gritty, okay? This is absolute Superman. Y'all's tripping. Y'all's tripping. Mr. Cow says the one that actually represents Superman. He's a lighthearted dude who generally is pretty happy. Cavill's fantastic, but got screwed by writing. That's not his fault at all. Mr. Cow, you don't know what you're talking about. You know, it's so funny. Dan1234 VTTRZ says dark and gritty. Let's just see if he's a real account. This doesn't look like a real account. Yeah, this is a bot. This is a bot. This is a bot. So here we have a bot. But the butt sides with the Snyder fans. But this is a butt. This is not a real account. So that's interesting. T-Rex says, easily the lighthearted and hopeful. That's how Superman is supposed to be. Let's just look at T-Rex because I'm going to see. I'm a big fan of dinosaurs. Okay. You joined May 2024. Yeah, that's something sketchy about you. Very sketchy about you. You're sketchy. I just said that Dan1234 VTRZ is a bot. That's not a real person. And T-Rex, I don't know, man. Something weird about him. That's all I'll say. David Kleinsmith says, lighthearted and hopeful. This looks like an actual person. It could be. Let's just see. Nope, he is a bot. Wow, that's crazy. So now we're into the line of the bots. Kai Vern, lighthearted and hopeful. So some of these people on here, okay, Spectator, Earth Prime, Earth 616, Middle Earth, Winterfield, and Beyond the Wall. Okay, he's just a gun fan. This is not a bot. I can definitely say definitively he's not a bot. He's an actual person. Alan says Snyder's version, so he must be a Snyder fan. He's not a Snyder fan. Interesting. He's not a Snyder fan, but he likes Snyder's version, so that makes it 31. Do you need to ask? Oh my God, hopeful, dark, better than hopeful, dark and gritty is not Superman. A blend would be best in my eyes. Hopeful. Christopher B says Superman. That's interesting. Let me see something. Christopher B. Yeah, he's a Snyder fan. Okay. Real one. Honestly, after seeing the scene, dark for DC overall, not only Supes. This looks like a troll. Someone. I am so correct. This is a troll. It's a fucking troll. I guess. Do I include the troll? I'm not going to include the troll. Omnius Knight says whichever Henry Cavill was, he turns out to be, I guess, a fan of Henry Cavill, and he's also not a Snyder fan. So we got a whole bunch of them. Anyway, that's 32. Personally, like the more realistic, which is not made fun for kids. That's my objective view on the subject at hand. The lighthearted version is great for kids, but for grown-up men, it's cringe. See Superman behaving like an emotional teen. This is Tom G, and he's not a Snyder fan. And there you go. So that's 33. I can go on. The version that depicts who Superman truly is and what he stands for. So James Gunn Superman, says John Alger. Engaged to an amazing woman, father to a beautiful daughter. He really loves James Gunn stuff. Yes, he loves James Gunn stuff. So I guess he bought into that stuff. Fat Gamer Guy says Snyder's Superman not saving people just wasn't a good interpretation of Superman. I don't know what you're talking about, buddy. He saved and literally saving a girl from a burning building in the next in the next shot. He's a Snyder fan. Oh my god, that's so funny. This is Christopher B. overdoing it. Owen says the new Superman was awful. And he's not a Snyder fan. This is interesting. So that's 34, I think. Boomax says, oh, for sure, the James Gunn one. Man of Steel was a bad movie. I don't know why people praise it that much. Let's see something. Boy. Oh, this guy is not even real. He's not even real. That's scary. This is a bot. Boom Zex or whatever. He is a bot. This is the first bot I see, and he's a member. They say he's a member. Lighthearted and hopeful. That's just Superman's vibe. Gritty's for the billionaire playboy who dressed like a bat. This is faded. Ooh, creator of Waste Space Comics parody account. Ooh. It's an industry guy. So it makes sense. You know, the more you look at this, the more you realize the industry guys, the guys who are fans of James Gunn, even the people who are saying both, trying to play both sides of the fence to get brownie points, you can tell that they're Gunn fans. That's why they're saying that. Tono Achua. Tono Achua doesn't like, and he's not a Snyder fan. Tono Achua says the dark and powerful. Interesting. So, just by going through this, you see 35 people are not Snyder fans, and they have a take that's similar to Snyder fans. There's a lot of Snyder fans in here. There are a lot of industry people in here. There are some Gunn fans in here. And then there are some bots. We literally pointed out to you some of the bots that are there. We got one Snyder bot, and we had one that supports Snyder or his take on things. And then we had two other bots I just saw there, which were supporting Gunn's movie. I'm sure there's probably more bots in here as well. Wallace flipped it for Peter Toby. And he says, which take on Superman works best? The dark and gritty version? And he just put up a picture of Gunn Superman, or the lighthearted, hopeful one. He flipped the script on him. He's also not a Snyder fan. Interesting. So, you know, at least I knew a lot of people in the Snyder community. That's what I'm basically trying to say. And, you know, that's number 36, by the way, of people who are not necessarily Snyder fans, but see things the way we see. And I think that a lot more DC fans side more with the Snyder side than the Gunn side. And the people who you see Snyder with Gunn, they're either Gunn fans who like his stuff, or they're executives, or they're people that work in the industry. And Peter Parker clearly works in the industry, which is why he put out the question. So I just wanted to show you guys that because I think that it's worth understanding who's creating the narrative, what they're really trying to say, etc. Okay, I don't even know how long I've been 2 hours in. I didn't even know it's 2 hours in. So there's all these these narratives about Zack Snyder's stuff. And it's basically coming from studio. It's the studio. And you want to know what the studio's view is? The studio's view is what these Gunt's view are. They're gonna, because they love James Gunn, so they're gonna. And even though, look at this. I think I did this in the previous video. So a heart is Henry Cavill, a thumbs up is James Gunn Superman. Look at that. Twice the amount of people, and this is in a Marvel DC group. Twice the amount of people as the people like Henry Cavill Superman than James Gunn. And this is the reality of the situation. The majority of DC, not half of DC, they will like to make you think so. The Gunts will like to make you think so. The industry people, the insiders will like to make you think so. But the truth is, more than half of DC, maybe the majority of DC, the audience that goes to see DC, they actually like Snyder's take on Superman more than they like Gunn's take. But the narrative that's being pushed is that Gunn's DC, is the future, and nobody wants to see Zack Snyder's take on Superman and all that kind of stuff. But you can see lies because they're not held up by facts. I'm going to show you a poll, but this is limited, and this is more to Snyder fans, but nonetheless. I'll show you a poll that I did somewhere. I don't know where it is. It's supposed to be on my profile somewhere. Let's see if I can find it. I think I made the poll yesterday or the day before yesterday. I can't remember. It'll take me a little while to get there, I think. Yeah, here it is. Do you want to restore the Snyderverse? 84% of the people that I polled, which is 112 votes so far, 5 days left, they said yes, they would like to see the Snyderverse restored. And 16% said no, they don't want such. And that's interesting because I kind of polled from like a lot of Snyder fans, but in addition, I also polled people from other walks of life: Ziggy Marley, Zendaya, Ludacris, Brian Lara, Lady Gaga. I polled from a vast array of people. Even Keanu Reeves, who we wanted to see is Constantine too, by the way. And this was the result of the poll so far. It's only 112 votes. And we have 5 days left. If you guys want to, and you've seen this video, maybe you should recruit some more people to do the poll. It's somewhere on my profile of my page, so you can check that out. So I've shown you a lot of evidence that supports many different things. I've shown you evidence of the absence of ticket sales for the new DCEU, the Marvelized DC. And I even, another point that needs to be made is this attempt at getting a sort of Christopher Reeve version of Superman, which James Gunn explored and Joss Whedon explored and Andy Muschietti explored. It has failed because, again, like I said before, the Tim Burton and then reinforced by Christopher Nolan and then Zack Snyder bringing the serious takes on DC movies. That's the preference for these major characters. This is why these movies keep on flopping, is because nobody really wants to see a comical take on these characters, particularly what James Gunn did, where he actually, at the expense of the character, degraded the character for a joke. People don't like that. Okay, they don't appreciate it. So as a result of that, numbers don't lie, and a lot of people lie, but numbers don't lie. And here's C.S. the director right here, and he's saying, James Gunn fans are the ones supporting DC and wanting it to succeed by paying for tickets, buying merchandise, and so on. But the Snyder fans are boycotting DC. Which one will make a studio fall more? I think not paying for anything, not supporting it or helping it to grow. I don't understand his logic. He's not even letting me collab or cut his videos with my video isn't CS the director. Uh, this is, I guess, Johnny Dome, and he's talking about what CS the director is doing. So I think he's somewhat I think he's somewhat despondent about that. Uh, anyways, this is basically my video. I'm going to Superman has issues. This is Culture Casino. Again, these are not Snyder fans. Warner Brothers Superman digital release moved up. DC in trouble. Early release explained by Comic Book Cast. Even more James Gunn Superman suit pics just released. That was a year ago. I don't know why I'm seeing all of these things though. Kind of weird. This is more my feed right here. And in real time, okay, in real time, I just saw some stuff there. So in real time, I said release the Snyderverse trilogy in cinemas and IMAX. And Jacob Kozik says, will never happen. Go enjoy Rebel Moon. So it's interesting seeing them again get triggered by me saying release the Snyderverse trilogy in cinemas. And this person is triggered because they're afraid that will happen. And this is an exec actually probably answering me here. So Jacob Kozik is probably an exec at Warner Brothers or in the industry, trying to stay in favor with the industry. And so his job is to come across here and try and discourage me from getting what I asked for, which is stupid. Like, these people are not very smart. Like, they don't understand that you're not going to change somebody's mind. You're not going to stop them from asking for something, you know. Um, so he responded, and then we have somebody who speaks in what looks like it looks like what language is this? Let me see if there's a translation for it. It looks like French, but I don't know. I don't know what he's trying to say. He's probably trying to say it's not a flop. Uh, a Justice League ensemble film commence on DC. A Justice League ensemble film that's yet another DC flop in Superman 2025. Can't even beat Justice League, another flop. Not adjusted for inflation. Explains where DC is today. This isn't even an option anymore. Restore the Snyderverse. Crazy how Superman 2025 isn't on that list, even with today's higher ticket prices. Guy says Fire Gun and Zaslav. Restore the Rock, Snyder, and Keaton verse while it's closed. Nolan really cooked DC. Restore the Snyderverse. David Zaslav need to retire. Restore the Snyderverse. Man of Steel deserved better. Aquaman is an awful movie. Superman not here. Not this year. A damn shame to where we are now. Something's got to change. Meh. Restore the Snyderverse. Suicide Squad 2. Peacemaker Season 1 and Super Invincible, Incapable were masterpieces. When why aren't they on the list? Yeah, that's what I thought. Resume the DCU. No, we're not resuming any DCEU. I'm just telling you that right now. The DCEU is superior to the DCU. No, I don't agree with that either. God, I'm not feeling the love here. What did I do wrong? Me, being director for one and head of DC Studio 2, making that god opening to Peacemaker Season 2. I have to admit something. I'm worried. I am seeing a lot of YouTubers reviewing Superman and they seem to like it. One even had tears in their thumbnail. I'm wondering what this will mean going forward. Nothing. It's all fake. They're trying to make it look like a success when it's not. Things will change soon. You sure? It's looking kind of real. I'm not worried. Let them keep faking it. Box office aren't adding up with their lies. And remember, when they also said they wouldn't get the Snyder Cut, but now we have it. Stay strong. The movie is also struggling digitally. The reaction means nothing without the numbers to back it up. The Wallace Close movement works. That's all that matters. I don't know if Wallace Close, again, I'm not into the Wallace Close movement stuff. I think organically this movie would flop because people just wouldn't dig it, and that's what happened. So that's basically that. I think I've done enough. I'll see you guys later. This stream was pretty long, and I did have a problem with that. And I hope you guys have a good one. Snyder here, just keep the Snyderverse trading higher than Superman. Oh, so funny. Oh, man. It's just so funny. So, yeah, that's what I've got you. From heroism to hedonism, Peacemaker Season 2. Oh, they're not digging that stuff at all. Neurotic is not digging it. Neurotic's not a Snyder fan. James Gunn Superman is giving DC a clear path forward. Oh, Lord, this is so funny. It's hilarious. I got you guys. I'm